Good morning. Really good week coming off of last week's victory. Selling the division. I tell you, just the look on the players' faces and the coaches' faces is that, man, there's more work to be done. Won the game, moving on to Dallas. Really good challenge for us overall as a team. And man, we're looking forward to going down there and playing in Jerry's world. So,
when you watch them, what's been just so difficult stopping them at home? I think it's 279 to 106 their point differential at home. They're averaging almost 40 points at home. Just what is it about them being at AT&T Stadium that makes them so difficult?
I just think for them in general, they're in a comfortable surroundings of their home, first and foremost. I think also, it's just something about them as far as, man, listen, our tempo, our execution, the plays that they have, because you told that shows up when you watch them on the home games and away games, how they attack you. And I think it's because of the way the crowd responds to them in those situations. I tell you what, they're a very explosive team. And we have to be on our P's and Q's to start this game off. And that was one of our defensive musts for the most part. Is how we start this game. And then also how we come out in the second half, right, against this team. Because you're absolutely right. They have been on a terror at home, and especially starting the game. That's one of the keys that I'm sure that their team in general. Because once you do that for them, man, it allows that defense to get going. And that's something that you don't want to do.
You bring up last year, just how you've seen him grow from that point, just the season.
Man, he seems so comfortable in this offense. Listen, obviously you had Kellen Moore that last year, and the head coach now wants to call it, and you just see him growing as a quarterback in that system. Listen, I think he's smart. I think he's tough. I think he brings a different aspect as far as him being able to throw at pinpoint accuracy and know where to go with the ball, but also have the ability to run with the ball and be able to make plays with his legs. Listen, he's not like Fields and these other guys, but he can make some plays with his legs.
You brought up the explosiveness of Dallas's offense.
Yeah.
You had 4 picks last game, but you also gave up 11 of 20 plus. You look at the personnel of Dallas, and they're similar in terms of just receivers. All of them can get down. Cook, CD.
No doubt.
I think Ferguson's got 8 or 9 20 plus plays. So what do your guys need to tighten up in the secondary to prevent that level of explosive plays again?
Here's where my confidence comes from. Demonstrated ability. And we've been one of the best teams as far as explosive plays, right, throughout the season. And, man, we had that one hiccup against a really, really good player that actually made a lot of those plays. So our guys have shown that they can do that. So what we do is go back to the drawing board, make sure we finish those plays, especially when we're in position to make those plays. And we just have to do that. And those guys know it. Listen, we was in position to make a lot of those plays. We went against a damn good player, and he made those plays. And we just have to go out there and make them.
You need a little bit more from your rush in some of those situations.
Say it again?
Do you need a little bit more from your pass rush in some of those situations as well?
Well, I think we hit the quarterback maybe 12 times. We had 4 sacks on him. So those guys did a good job of getting to the quarterback. The thing we got to do is just finish, just like I said before.
What have you been most proud of with Iffy over this 3-week stretch since he's been named a starter, getting a majority of the snaps?
If he understands exactly what he's doing now, and I'm not saying he didn't before, but, man, it's just he's so comfortable in that position of being safety. That's what I mean when I say now. Because that transition is not easy for everybody, because now you go from a single focus guy to, man, I got to see the field. And that's what he's done a really good job of. And I tell you what, if you watch this player in practice, when we go through some of our blitz looks and things like that, man, he does a hell of a job blitzing. And you see why he have the sack production he's had over the last couple of weeks. So hopefully he can continue that trend. And hopefully for us as a defense, we continue the trend of getting takeaways because you see them coming in bunches now. All right. And I think they've been keys to how we've operated throughout the games as far as getting these victories. So excited for us as a defense to continue to do that.
You got to
takeaways? Is that a snowball thing? I mean, have you found in your past that once they start coming, they continue to come?
Generally, it does. So I'm hoping that it continues that way.
Kind of a pretty unique skill set in terms of just his physical abilities.
Yeah.
Does he, in a way, open up your defensive playbook?
You know what? He's, and I think you guys know this, my background with safeties have always come from a corner background. And when you're able to do that, you're able to show different looks as a defense to where you don't have to run your corners all the time. And you can just put them on the slot and we're all good. So in answering the question you just asked, absolutely. And he does that. Now, he's not going to lose that corner skill set, but he has to make sure that he has a safety mentality.
A similar question, Jeremy. You mentioned if he's blitzability.
Yeah.
We've seen that repeatedly, but you've got a few guys that really seem to have a knack for it. Branch has a knack for it.
Yeah.
You've been rushing a lot more with Anzalone, and he seems to have found a knack for it. When you have all those different pieces that have that ability to consistently find the right lanes and affect the quarterback quickly, as a play caller, I mean, how much does that expand your ability to really utilize a wide array of blitzes?
It does. And the ability to blitz from different spots on the field. I mean, you see Anzo, he blitzes from the interior, then he gets on the edge and blitz. The same thing with Iffy. Iffy had a couple of blitzes from the interior. Tracy had a blitz from the interior. But Iffy's been making a lot of hay from blitzing off the edge now. So just being able to do that, it allows us to give offenses different looks, so they just can't say, okay, this is where this guy's going to come from for the most part. So you're absolutely right when you ask that question.
For those guys blitzing, is it disguising it? Is it, just making it
Somewhat disguised and somewhat a knack. Sometimes you just have it. And if he's the type of guy that just has it. Now, I will tell you this, he's learning to understand exactly how to blitz on the back, because there are certain things that a back would do when you barreling right at him. You have to understand that, and you have to be able to read it quickly to be able to understand how to make your moves.
I'm wondering about the safety rotation.
Yeah.
You said best guy plays. But if the competition is close in practice, what are maybe one or two intangibles you may look for that may set apart one guy over another?
The best guy playing.
Within
Now, listen, there will always be opportunities to getting like all those guys on the field. And I know I'm saying it as a joke before, but listen, man, we want to get the best players on the field as much as we can. And that's my job to do that. And I promise you this, that will get done. It's just making sure that you don't disrupt, defense the way we've been playing it. And listen, I'm honest and upfront with every player that we've have. And I will always be that way. Coming from a former player, that's what you want from a coach. And every player knows that. So, but every player also knows I want to make sure that we get the best players on the field too. So I'll make sure that happens.
Are you enjoying the brainstorming process of all those weapons will be like when you have them, and how you can mix and match them to really mess with your opponent?
Yes, you do. When Matt comes back, when Houston comes back, when Ducey comes back, all those guys, the thing is that you want to make sure that you don't go too crazy to where guys end up having issues like remembering or memorizing. You want to be more concept-based. So, but we do a really good job defensively to make sure that happens.
Last week, Ben praised you as being a name that should be included in NFL talks for a future head coach. Just wondering your reaction to that, one. And two, how do you block out the noise if you hear your name being talked about future opportunities?
Guys, listen, man, it's as tough as it is, especially when you're at this point to where, and when I talked about this to our defense, to be honest with you, man, at this point, you've created something for yourself. We're 11-4, we're winners. And winners talk, walk, practice, go through walkthrough, they do things different. And I've been a part of that for a long time in my career as a player and as a coach. And so the most important thing you have to do when you become a winner, you focus on the job at hand and what's in front of you. And everything else is going to take care of itself. And I believe in you do the things you have to do, the byproducts will be there for you. And if that becomes to be a head coach, man, listen, I'm grateful and I'm with it. But I said this before, and I said it again, man, I'm enjoying my time being the coordinator here in Detroit. And I want to see this thing through. I want to see what we can do. And I appreciate Ben saying that. I mean, obviously, he's done a hell of a job with the offense. And I tell you what, to be able to get the ball to all those pieces, I mean, that's a task in itself. So hats off to him and how he's operating with those guys.
Much like your own offense here, Dallas has always been built through their offensive line. I mean, going all the way back through the 90s.
No doubt. Since my days of playing.
That run game has been their kind of engine to get everything else going, but it hasn't been as efficient this year as it has in past. So when you look at them on tape, what are you seeing from their run game that may still have you concerned about what they can do?
Man, you have to consider the last couple of years they've had probably one of the better backs in the league that was running the ball for them. And when that piece is gone, I mean, there's something that's going to be missing. Obviously, you want some guys that end up taking a slack, but that was an important piece for that team for a number of years. But, man, when you have an O-line like that and the backs that they still have, I mean, they do some things that's pretty unique as far as the run game is concerned. And we know that they're going to try to run it on us. I mean, that's just who they are. That's how they're built. But we also know Dak is going to use his arm in this game. So we'll be ready for it. I'm good? All right, fellas.
How we doing? That's right.
To go with Badgley. Looks like it's been some pretty good returns so far. Just what did you like out of him?
Yeah, he's been solid. But obviously we've had him the year before. We didn't like the protection on the block PAT, obviously. But it really had nothing to do with Badgley or really the operation. We had a guy not execute really his job. It's not a rush we hadn't seen or anything like that, but obviously not good enough.
What was the, issue on that play?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into it in detail, but we had one player who didn't execute exactly how he should have. The first rep of the game's perfect, and he didn't do his job the way he's supposed to do the next one, and so that's happened.
Also had, I think, a legal formation or something like that on a little uncharacteristic for you guys. You've been pretty solid in terms of not getting a lot of penalties this year.
Yeah, penalties, I think we have 10 on the season. Some of those, though, are like, it's always hard to look at the statistic because if we take a delay on purpose on punt or something like that or try to get someone to jump off sides and take a delay, that adds in there. But, yeah, we had the illegal formation. Nowoski was off the ball on that punt. I thought our punt team did a good job handling it. It came back out, clutch punt in the end, good coverage. But, yeah, obviously we're not looking at penalties, that's for sure.
How tough is that for a punter? I mean, I know that's all they do and that's the expectation, but that's a clutch, I guess, kick, and to have it pulled back and the disappointment of that to go out there and essentially execute it again the way you want. How difficult is that?
Yeah, punting the ball is difficult, period. These guys make it look pretty easy, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely not easy in that situation. It's a big moment in the game, which is really kind of what you live for, I think, if you're a true competitor. But it's like 2.5 minutes on the clock. Your first punt was a successful punt, and then you got to come back and redo it. They're putting a lot of pressure on you. They had 8 guys in the box. They were rushing us on really both of them. I thought the protection did a nice job, and then obviously Fox did a great job hitting the ball, especially the second one. And then, Lucas, our right gunner down there, he did a real nice job kind of holding that guy up from getting started. Number 4 is a competitive returner for them, Powell. And then the rest of the coverage did a nice job covering down the field. So it ended up being a good play.
Faced a pretty good returner this week, Turpin. If I remember right, you guys might have looked at him. I could be wrong about that, but when he came from USFL or where he came from, so what challenges does he present? What do you like?
Yeah, he's a good competitive player. I would say really at that returner position, one of the first things that makes a guy good is just being like competitive, wanting to catch the ball, wanting to do something with it after the play, trying to do something with it, no matter what the picture looks like. As a punt returner, is there a gunner in your face, but you're still catching it and trying to make a guy miss and go, or you're taking the easy, fair catch. And this guy, he wants to return every ball he can return. So he puts pressure on you that ways. And then, he's not a real big guy, but he's definitely quick and shifty. He does a great job of setting coverage, making guys miss. He can really stretch you and make you feel his speed, quickness, and then he'll put his foot in the ground. He's kind of a, quick one-stop, start-stop, one-cut type guy. So anyways, he creates space for himself like all the great returners do. He helps the blockers in front of him look good by setting those blocks up, making those guys, really look better than maybe they are without a good player back there. So he definitely does a really good job. We played against a handful of good returners the last few weeks here, so this will be another one good challenge for us.
You can appreciate what Brandon Aubrey's doing from
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm happy for the guy. I didn't really know much about him. I actually went to one of those USFL or whatever league he was in, XFL, USFL, whatever that was here when they were playing, I don't know, the Michigan team in Ford Field. I went to the game, watched the guy play. I thought he did a good job. He's friends with Daly, our long snapper, and they went to Notre Dame together. And so he ended up being at the game also and told me about him. So we're sitting there watching him play. And, it's obviously great. He told me the story. He's a soccer player, converted. And then it's good to see him, obviously, having the success he's had. He's done a great job.
I love the story. I know you're a story guy about, coming from soccer right now.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, good for him. And then, he's played great. And it's not only, he's hit some tough kicks, too. He's got a 60-yarder. He's 8 for 8 from 50+. He's 33 of 33. I think he's hit, 13, 30 to 39s, and maybe it's 6, 40 to 49s, but good numbers.
You were part of the kind of everything in Philadelphia when they kind of got the monkey off their back and were able to make that Super Bowl run. Just curious how you were able to reflect on this past weekend and the achievement and maybe the road ahead as well.
Yeah, so I appreciate you asking the question because you guys kind of asked me a similar question a week ago of and I really wasn't prepared for that very well. And so I hadn't really thought much about it. And I really think that, so since then I've thought a lot about it because it's bothered me. You guys got me. But it has bothered me. And I think really, I really feel, and I kind of mentioned it a little bit, but as a coach, you are definitely so worried about the next thing. And it is very, very hard to reflect and realize, any good during the season. And so really, I don't even know what we've accomplished. We're trying to win the next game. And that's like coach speak, but it is definitely how we feel. It's definitely how I feel. I know that for sure. And really the plays that stick in your mind, I think the older you get and the longer you coach, the plays that stick in your mind are like the negative plays. So the blocked field goal or the extra point from last week, it's Christmas Eve, you can't sleep, you wake up on Christmas morning, you're still frustrated. And then you're thinking about, okay, now what are they going to do to us this week? How are they going to attack us? We got that on film. And really, I really do think that in the moment as a coach, I think most of us really are just so focused on the next player, the next opponent, the next game, that it really is hard to put it in perspective. I really do think that at some point when you're able to look back, you'll realize like what you did and all that. And I think, over time for me, the Super Bowl, you're able to look back at that a little bit more. The longer it gets or further it gets away. And that you did something good. And I think, the most important thing on all that stuff is probably the people that invested so much in you along the way, whether it be your parents or your high school coach or whatever, that you made them proud and you made them feel like, this guy actually did something. So anyway, I don't know. I really do know that obviously the Cowboys are a good football team. They play well in special teams. And so it really is. As soon as that last game was over, those guys are all celebrating in the locker room. So my kids tell me they're on like whatever, the live feeds of whatever these apps are. And they're like, where were you? And I was like, well, I was changing and getting ready for the next game. So, and that's just how it is. I wish I could sit in there and celebrate, but really it's their day anyways. I think that's how a coach sees it too. It's like, you're happy for the players. You love it for them. That's why you do it. It's really not about you or me or I. It's really more about them. And so you're happy for them for sure. But for you, you're getting ready for the next thing.
At Christmas, sort of thinking about that block.
Well, I woke up in the middle of the night thinking about it. A million times. Yeah, you think about those plays. The the negative plays stick with you much more so than any of the positive plays. In my time, we've made a lot of plays too, but the ones that really stick with you the longest are all the negative plays.
Or maybe it's easy for coaches to compartmentalize and hey, it's not the next game. Players are sometimes a little bit different, right? They can get caught up in the emotion. What's the key to make sure that players stay aware of the big picture and not get too caught up in hey, this is what we accomplished and let the game slip?
Yeah, I think the key to that is basically just bringing the focus back down on each play, make them realize, for us, that blocked field goal is an opportunity to talk about, hey, but you can't let your guard down in this game. It's just like life. I know I always say that all the time, but it is like life. And I think what happens to people is the head coach used this word with us, but complacency sometimes sets in. And you think, like, I could give maybe just a little bit less and get the same result or the same reward. And I don't maybe have to. And maybe the longer I do it and, the more proficient I become, like with your job or my job, maybe I don't have to quite do that anymore. Or I deserve to not maybe have to put as much in as I used to when I was young coming up. And I think, this game will humble you that way. And as soon as you give it a little bit less or less than your full attention at times, you'll pay the price for it. And that's really what we did on that field goal block. And it's what you love about the game as a coach is it takes everything you got, every single game, every single play. It means so much. It's why you're focused on the next play all the time. But it truly is, and it's a challenge, and it's what's great about it. But I think really grounding the players and getting them to realize, like, hey, man, this game's going to come down to execution. It's going to take every play for 60 minutes, and it's going to take every guy's best. And really it comes down to probably the team that makes the fewest mistakes.
I wanted to ask about Tracy Walker. It's been a change in roles for him. Just wondering your assessment of how he's handled it and what he's added to the special teams.
Yeah, I think, it's a really good question because I think what happens, it's easy for us to sit here and say, well, it's no big deal. He's not starting. Well, he's being asked to do this. And I always say, like, well, yeah, it's not that big of a deal. But if they came in and told me next week that they want me to load the plane instead of coach special teams, I might feel like, hey, that's not really what I signed up for. And I think that's hard to deal with emotionally. And I think there's a real component to that you got to be cognizant of. Now, that being said, at the end of the day, they're paying us to get a job done. And whatever they asked us to do, we got to do. And we accepted that when we came here. And so ultimately, if you accept that role, then it's your responsibility to the rest of the team and the players and coaches and people around you to give everything you got. I think that Tracy's done a great job with that, and I really respect and admire it. I know it's what he's supposed to do, but it's not easy. He does it with a smile on his face. He's into it. He's trying to get better. And I definitely appreciate and respect that. I don't think it's easy for him. I think playing on special teams is difficult. I think there's some startup time for it, and I think the more you play at it, just like anything, the better you get. So obviously he's new to it. He hasn't done much of it throughout his career, but I definitely admire and respect what he's done for us. All right. Appreciate it, guys.
Everyone have a good Christmas? You good? Okay. Good. All right, fire away.
Dan had complimented you on the game plan and some of the, things you implemented in there to take advantage of what Minnesota does. What did you like about, what you put in there and particularly how those guys executed it?
Listen, it was a unique scheme, and they've been a tough nut to crack all year long, and so our guys were very detailed with the week of preparation that carried over to the game. And then really it's happened a few times where you can just kind of tell in pregame the demeanor, the mindset, the intensity. You kind of knew that they were going to come out and play really well. So it's hard to do every week. Some weeks are different than others, but you kind of just had this feeling just watching them warm up that they were going to come out and play really hard, which is a big part of the battle anyways. But no, those guys did a great job. I started with Jared. We loaded him up and he handled it really well. And then it trickles down to the skill guys. The attention to detail was excellent. And then we knew up front they were going to generate a lot of one-on-ones, and our big guys rose to that challenge, and our backs too. They were singled up in pass protection more last week than they have been all season, and they did a great job.
Three drives, 13 plays or longer, 3 touchdown drives. I don't know, how much did you think that might have been the way it was going to go down, that you were going to have to nickel and dime your way down the field, and how difficult?
Yeah, truthfully, I didn't really foresee that to be the case. The one thing that we've been consistently good at all year, week in and week out, is generating explosive plays. And last week we were probably at our lowest on the season. And so that's not necessarily how we want the games to be played. The explosives help to erase some little mistakes that we have. When we do play games like that in extended drives, we need to be on our details, which we were, and excellent on third down, which at parts of the game we really were. And then we had some big fourth down conversions as well. So the margin for error goes down a little bit when you're not quite as explosive. So it's not necessarily where we want to live, but our guys did a nice job. Really, I'd say through 3 quarters, that last quarter fell off just a little bit. And there's a number of reasons for that, but we could have ended that game a little bit cleaner than what we did.
Fipp said, go ahead if you get.
Can that be a blessing in disguise, though? Those, like, how many long drives you guys had? Kind of seemed like they were, excuse me, pretty gassed at the end of the game, the Vikings defense.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think there's always something to be said when you have the time of possession in your favor and you're keeping your defense off the field. The way their offense was playing was almost polar opposite of how we were playing, just trying to generate chunks throughout the game. And once it gets down to the fourth quarter, normally the team that has been grinding it out a little bit longer, they come out on top. And that's where it was a little twisted in the game. We didn't necessarily finish it like we wanted to.
Fipp was sort of explaining the coach's mindset, like how little time there is in season to appreciate, accomplishments at times, saying, like he woke up in the middle of the night thinking about the block PAT, right? There's little things that sort of grind on him. I'm wondering if there's anything from that game similar that was grinding on you, and maybe even if not, just speak to that mindset of like.
You're talking about the delay games? Yeah. Thanks, Dave. That's a nice way of saying it, right? No, I think.
That mindset of like, hey, whatever we accomplish, there'll be time to appreciate that later. I've got something else I got to take care of.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's funny because, like I said, what a big game, what a big win to seal the division like we did, and you still go to the locker room, and I'm over here still thinking about, man, I wanted to finish the game with the football. That's really want to seal it out that way, and so I'm kind of kicking myself. Like I said, the delay games, those are. The play callers got to get the play in faster, and the guys will make it right. That's the bottom line. I know Jared said it's everyone involved, but that's on me. I got to fix that, and I will going forward. But yeah, those things happen. But it is hard to win in this league, so I always keep that in the back of my head, even when things don't go exactly as planned, and particularly in this organization, this city, where it's been a long time coming to win a division. So. Very happy for that, but just like Coach said, we're not complacent. I mean, he made that loud and clear early this week that our focus is now shifting, and I think our guys are responding the right way.
Last game in Dallas was a really weird one for you guys, and fumbled at the goal line, but one of the elements of that was losing Amon-Ra early to the protocol procedure. So I'm just curious, as a play caller, you think you have all the contingencies planned, but it's probably a really unique one to lose your number one pass threat very early in a game. So going back and looking at that game after we did, like, what did you learn as a play caller in terms of adjusting on the fly to a situation like that?
Yeah, I mean, guys always step up. I think it was TK. He was the one that ended up assuming a lot of the reps that Amon-Ra had, and I had a lot of confidence last year in TK. But it's funny you bring it up, because I was talking with Coach Campbell about this just the other day. Just our receiver room going into this game as opposed to last year is completely different. As a whole, I mean, our whole unit is different. We're a lot healthier right now than I believe we were at that time a year ago. And so I feel really good about going into this game and who we have. In regards to your question, absolutely, you got to adjust when guys go down. That happens each and every week. But hopefully this week won't be the case.
With the receivers, I'm sorry, Ben. Peoples-Jones has not played a lot of snaps, but he's had some really big catches for you guys. Dan, when you guys acquired him, said he's that insurance piece you thought maybe you were missing. I mean, is that kind of what you're talking about there? You have that guy. And is he more ready for a bigger role if called upon?
Yeah, there's no question. He's very smart, just like we thought, and he's practicing really, really well. It's hard to who do we take off the field sometimes, and maybe we want to generate them in a certain personnel group, and so we're a little bit heavier and we have less receivers on the field. So there is a give and take, but the limited reps that he has had, he's risen to the occasion. And last week it's a big 3rd and 8 conversion, and I think the Chicago week he had a big catch in that one as well. So it's he gets one for us each week that maybe we're not counting on going into the game, but they've been big in terms of the result.
Might be a bit of an obvious one, but how much does Micah Parsons kind of change the way you look at this game on Saturday night?
Oh yeah, he's a game wrecker for sure. I was just talking to the guys upstairs. They move him around so much, whether it's right side, left side, over either guard, over the center. He's just every snap he's almost in a different location, so it's hard to get a beat a little bit to account for where he's at. And then, okay, so where he is at, they have so many other dynamic guys up front that are fresh. I mean, I think that's the thing that Coach Quinn does such a nice job, is the rotation and keeping those guys going nonstop and relentless. Today's our 3rd down day, and you turn on their 3rd down tape, and it is just a party at the quarterback for 3rd and 5 plus. It's pretty special what they can accomplish with their pass rush. So Micah is a huge part of the issues that we are encountering here this week.
This offense for you guys, obviously your offense, is unique, it seems like, in the NFL, where you don't have one singular star. You got to stop this guy. You got to stop this guy. It's not all about the quarterback or the receiver. Is that, I'm sure that's advantages for a play caller. Is it challenges too when you have so many receivers, multiple running backs, to use them all?
Yeah, I think that's something we do every week, is we try to make sure whoever's active on game day, there are plays in for each and every guy. We whether they get called, that's a different story, and whether the defense gives us the favorable coverage, that's a different story as well. But these guys are all involved. A lot of guys will ask to do some dirty work, and we want to reward them with some. In the run game, they're doing some dirty work, and we want to reward them with some targets in the passing game because of it. And so, there is a little give or take, but I do feel that when a play is needed, or if we're stalling out, there are certain guys we gravitate to. Hey, we got to get it into so-and-so's hands or so-and-so's hands, just to get a little spark and a little juice to get us going back on the right track.
The obvious names, I'm thinking in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of guys, but yeah, the guys that probably touched the ball the most: St. Brown, Gibby, Monty, Laporta is certainly making a case to be there as well.
Was David dealing with anything, or why did David not play much in that 3rd quarter, not get much touch? It's just game script?
It was really kind of just how it went. I really don't have a great reason for you, Dave, to be honest with you. We're kind of moving along and talking with Coach Montgomery. He's like, hey, this is going to be Gibby series. This is going to be Gibby series. And that's kind of how we came out of I don't know if the reps were skewed in the first half to where we just wanted to even it up there in the second half. A short week, so we didn't really revisit that in depth here early this week.
I have a Gibbs question for you. I mean, we've seen it. He's so incredibly electric. Every time the ball gets in his hands, like you're almost expecting a big play now. I don't think we've seen that in the past game as much as maybe we anticipated, just the way you really worked that and grinded that through the offseason. It's not for a lack of effort. You're getting him plenty of targets. Just is there something that you're finding that's not unlocking him in space the same way in the past game that you are on the ground?
Each week's been a little bit different challenge. I knew last week that it would be a little harder against Minnesota. They bring so much pressure that our backs were going to have to be a big part of our pass protection plan. Yeah, I would say just each week, each team is adding a different layer of how can they make it challenging to get him the ball in the passing game. Some weeks are easier than others. Leave it at that.
Does Gibbs equipped to do the 4-minute offense too? I mean, that was David, obviously. He came back in and handled that for you, but you had so much success. Like, you just ride the hot hand and give Gibbs those carries.
In the 4-minute? Oh shoot! I thought David did a great job too in the 4 minutes. So I don't second guess having David in there at all. 4 minute was going about like we had hoped, and then the 2nd and 7 became a 2nd and 12, and then threw me off just a little bit. I'm thinking 3rd down next, and now I'm 2nd, and so delay game followed, and it spiraled out of control. And so great learning opportunity, but I don't think the back in the game necessarily had anything to do with us not finishing the game.
Have you gotten a feel for Panay's mindset when he goes up against premier pass rushers like Micah Parsons here?
Yeah, I think he's the same guy every day. So I'm sure he relishes this challenge, as does Dak on the other side, because like I said, Micah is gonna line up all over the place. But yeah, he certainly loves this type of matchup because it allows him to showcase what he's capable of.
Thank you.
Thank you.